I'm going to talk about games people play. And I've got a really vivid example of that because I was at a sort of what you might call a sort of a networking event a couple of nights ago where everybody appeared to be playing their role. And so I'm going to explain to you what games people play are. And if you haven't come across it before, you may suddenly be shocked at how you see this kind of everywhere around in society, and you know, me included, everybody included, because it's kind of automatic. It's something that you learn in childhood, in the family system. So let me start off with what games people play are, and then afterwards I guess we're going to go into the scripts that people play out their life by as well, because these two are linked. So games people play are mechanisms by which people can interact with other people without, I was going to say stepping on other people's toes, without engaging in difficult, uncomfortable subjects. So it's like, Shakespeare, all the world's a stage. It's like people find a social situation, they slot themselves into a role in that situation, and they perform. And they perform the role particularly well because it's one that they've learned since childhood. And they are hoping that the recipient of their game understands the game and reciprocates back. And so the two of you, or the multitude of you, all end up on autopilot playing the parts of the roles in order that the game proceeds to a predictable end when nobody gets hurt. Everybody feels safe. There's not really any achievement to it. So, so my example basically is small talk in a networking event where people are there to kind of explain who they are. So they start off by telling you about their job, which is not really who they am. Maybe it is if it happened to be their calling in life, but for most people it's not. It's a small aspect of their personality, but it's something that people can talk about very easily. It's non-threatening, and it's also kind of a way of showing off a little bit, yeah. So you can deliver a line. And I know it's going to occur, okay? I've got no problem that it's going to occur. But what I like to do is to try and, well, at the very least, invite people to go a stage further, to become authentic. So you can learn a lot about games people play from a guy called Eric Berne, B-E-R-N-E. He actually wrote a book called Games People Play. He's the forefather of what's officially called transactional analysis. He had another delightful little book which is called What to Do After You Say Hello. So if you want to look at him, you can do. What I just said remind me of another book which is called Nonviolent Communication, written by Marshall Rosenberg, which in a similar vein is kind of getting people to have an authentic conversation. So Marshall Rosenberg's example is that basically he's in one of these small talk environments, and he basically apologizes to the people in the group. Imagine he's there with 5 or 6 people, and they're all politely talking about subjects which make everybody feel absolutely nothing. And so Marshall pipes up and apologizes and says, "I'm terribly sorry, but this conversation isn't really doing anything for me. It's not really delivering. I'm not feeling any spark inside of myself, What I'm really looking for, what I would love to hear from you, is what's alive inside of you, The meanings in this moment that are relevant to you. And let's see if that reverberates with me. And let's see if we can create a little spark, a little diamond, a little piece of fascination or joy or curiosity, friendship. Okay? And I really resonate with that story. This is what I want when I go to these events, right? When I go to these events, I just want to meet friends. I want to identify someone that I've never met before in my life that for some reason or other is fascinating, intriguing, challenging, playful, open-minded, that I can have a witty, delightful kind of interaction with. So this idea of doing small talk and being polite and dancing around the edges of everything which is meaningful is just remarkably off-putting to me. It leaves me cold. So for me, basically, once I permit people to do this, to do this thing, to play their role, because it's kind of inevitable, right? It's almost part of people's psyche that they want to invite people to play this game because it's non-threatening, it's safe. When you're meeting a stranger, it's not comfortable to expose your vulnerability, to expose your truth. You kind of start with these rather neutral elements in order that you can gauge from the other person if it's someone that you do want to kind of offer up something of your inner circle, or if you simply want to stick with the banalities. Okay, so if you're aware of this, then you can go to stage 2, stage 3. But if you're not aware of it, it's very easy to get trapped in the games people play and get nowhere, right? And you can play these games either because you're looking for a positive outcome or just because you're trying to avoid a negative outcome. So for me, and this is probably also a game, I do want to learn from individuals. I do want to see what makes them tick. And so once they've done that kind of that opening gambit, let's say, they are hoping that I'm going to reciprocate, that I'm going to play the game, that I'm going to then tell them my job, and we can have a somewhat neutral conversation. And I tend to do the pattern interrupt. I tend to ask them again. I tend to say, okay, so that's your career or whatever it was that you were talking about. That's kind of inoffensive. But who's the real you? What about the parts of you that are absolutely fascinating, or something like that? And some people like that. Some people can't quite gel with it. It's a little bit shocking. It's not really what they were prepared for. To that, you'll probably get another type of script, but at least it will be a little bit nuanced. It'll be more interesting than the usual, let's say. But one that I found that worked very well last night, or a couple of nights ago, was inviting people, and obviously it depends upon the dynamics of the individual that you're chatting with. But what I discovered worked pretty well was asking people a very open question. If you had the opportunity tonight, what would be the best outcome that you would hope for from this evening? Or depending upon the playfulness of the individual, imagine you've got a magic wand. What would be the best thing that you could find out from this evening, that you would get out of it at the end of the evening? And then most people they think, and they kind of will come back with something, I don't know, it'd be somewhat interesting to learn something new, to end up laughing like I can't recall the last time I'll ever laugh so much, whatever it may be. And then you have a connection, right? Then you have a spark of vitality. Then you have an opportunity for joy. So that's the kind of the antithesis of the games people play. So let's get into the guts of the games people play. Okay. So what is going on here is this is a learned apparatus that begins in the family situation when we're very, very small. The family is a system. Every person in the family, and this could be like the nuclear family, your family at home, or it could be the extended family. It can easily you can look at many systems that we'll go on to, but this starts before you're too young to realize. So we'll stick with the family situations, and mum, dad, assuming, brothers, sisters, whoever it may be that's there. And everybody is already playing a role in the game because they've been there longer than you, right? They've all established their positions. You know, maybe dad's very jocular and very jokey, and mummy's very caring and soothing. You know, I'm just playing a stereotype, and then there's a brother who's already 10 years old who's trying to be boisterous and strong. You know, who knows, whatever it is. And you come along and you have to fit within the system. So you kind of subconsciously understand the games that other people are playing, and you find your own games that fit in, right? And these games can be the victim, the player, the hero, the rescuer, the risk taker, and it depends upon what you think you're going to gain approval from other members and how they are going to respond to you. But the end result is that you learn these ways of playing roles within the family environment. You know, you can see this really, really easily when guys go out to the pub, right? You can see the roles being played out, the games being played. And what is going on is that player A plays a card in the full knowledge of the game which is being played and the response which is expected from the other party. And then you hope that that response comes back. And if you do, then the two of you or the five of you can then go down that tunnel as far as you wish to go. Yeah? So everybody gets a predictable outcome. So it's safe, it's comfortable, it's understood, it's predictable. It allows people to have an interaction which is non-threatening. But you don't really get anywhere at the end of it. Okay? My way is a bit more disruptive. You know, my way is to say, okay, we've played a game. Can I invite you to play a deeper game? It doesn't mean not playing a game at all, but can we kind of get real? Can we, in Marshall Rosenberg's words, discover what's alive in you today? And that sort of thing. So they're the games that people play. And you'll notice this as you go around, that there are games which are appropriate for certain social situations. And when you are habituated in doing this, you and the other people can all dive down this like a rabbit hole. And before you know it, you're just playing these games. So what I'm encouraging you to do is actually to simply take a step back, much like everything else in what I'm doing, really. We're back to the considered life. Consider what it is that you're doing. If you find yourself running down one of these rails, if you find yourself suddenly playing a game and you're kind of thinking, is this me? You know, why am I doing this? Look back on the roles that you were playing in your family life, because I'm pretty sure that there'll be a reason for it, right? That it's relatable to something earlier in life. So that's one side to the games people play. That's a rather short-term affair, right? That is an appeasing strategy. It's a way of soothing yourself and of fitting into a group without ruffling any feathers. There is a longer-term element to games people play, which are these scripts that we live our lives by. And this is kind of touching onto the ideas that I discussed in another video about archetypes. Okay, so we have archetypes and stories, a bit like fairy tales, that we kind of identify with. We identify with very vividly. And they can be the same kind of underpinnings to the games people play. So they can be the victim, the rescuer, the hero, the player, the magician, the creative one, all the nurturer, many things like this. And what happens is they fulfill certain needs inside of us, and so we come to identify with them I mentioned on another one about how I relate to sad songs. You know, I come to identify with them, and kind of encourage that story. It's almost another kind of self-soothing strategy, but it's something that we do on a much longer term basis, and so we can end up fulfilling our destiny through these fairy tales, these scripts that were running around in the back of our mind. And so again, if you come up with this idea that there are these stories, take a step back, think where they come from. They probably also come from your childhood. They're probably a very, very similar creation to the games that you're playing. And that's why I kind of thought it was useful to bring that one up as well at the same time. So yeah, so if you want to look into this in more detail, have a look at Eric Berne and have a look at Marshall Rosenberg's nonviolent communication. That's also pretty useful. But most of all, have a look at what you're doing. Have a look at moments when you suddenly notice yourself running down a route on autopilot. Now that I've told you about this, if you haven't come across it before, you will notice the moments when you start playing a game in the hope that somebody else plays the game back to you, and so that the two of you can kind of be safe and not have too much emotional hassle. Yeah? Which is a choice. That's perfectly okay if you choose to do so, but as long as you're aware of it, because you don't really progress from it, you just end up doing what you did yesterday. Yeah? It's a fascinating subject, and you'll see it all around you in all of the interactions with people. Now, for me, it's not very fulfilling. So when it happens, I do the NLP pattern interrupt, okay? I find a way of lifting the conversation beyond it, you know? So I throw in an open-ended question that kind of says, I recognize that we're playing a game, and I'm not really sure that this game is delivering anything to either of us. Would you like to play a better game? You know, and see what happens. And some people like it and some people don't. And that's okay, because what happens is you end up reverberating with people that reverberate with you, right? When you're playing the game and you're being completely automatic, well, then nobody really understands who they are. And so you don't really get anywhere. Yeah? So it's my way of getting to know people. It's my way of expressing myself and inviting somebody else to express themselves. It's kind of a way of saying, you know, look, this is a safe environment. Be real. Be amazing, and let's see where that goes. You know, life is an invitation to do that. So there you go. I hope that's interesting. If it is, I haven't gone very far into this, you know, and there's a great deal about transactional analysis that you can get into. So if you want, let me know, and I can go further into it. There are many aspects to it. And if you kind of reverberate with it, have a look at the other videos, because there's probably something juicy in there as well. All right, thank you very much for watching. And let me know in the comments below if it's relevant and valid. If you have come up with other ways, because I think once you become aware of this, it's the sort of thing that you do kind of recoil against. If you found ways to kind of disrupt it without, how can I say it, whilst maintaining people on your side, because it's easy to be abrupt, and then you kind of destroy the ambience. You know, the idea is to invite people to go further without scaring them. So if you found ways of doing that, you know, throw them in the comments. That might be useful as well, because I'm sure mine are very limited in scope. All right, thank you very much for watching. Take care. Have a look at the other videos. All right.